feel better. Actually,
it will make them feel better. Hi, everyone. It's Jackie Van Workum, founder of Grieving Moms Finding Hope. And yes, we're giggling as we usually do before we are. I'm sorry. We are at Hope after the landslide. So we were so sidetracked because we were just laughing about something that I'm not supposed to share. Right, Dee? This is my beautiful guest, Dee, that you probably recognize from a few weeks ago. And before we start to chat together, I wanted to welcome you here. I know it's not a place that you really wanted to be, but I'm glad that you're here. And as we're going through, please, please, please share your comments on there because we can both see them. We're pretty confident we can both see them, and we want to see where you're viewing from. And if you have anything to say in the midst of our sharing tonight, we're going to be talking about session 9 in the book that I wrote, which is called Resurfacing, to help you with your grieving. And that session is dealing with other people. And that sounds like it's going to be a toxic thing, but it's really not. It's really showing the love of people as we're going through our grieving. But again, welcome to Hope After the Landslide. We do this every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I've got this fireplace going in the background thinking that, it was going to be really nice, but I think my back's starting to get a little too hot. So I might have to get up in the middle of the show and turn it off. But anyway, I wanted to welcome you again, Dee. And Dee and I have been in prayer about sharing more often together, kind of doing, I don't want to really call it a talk show, but it can be a talk show for grieving moms when I don't have a guest that's on here, because I've got a lot of great feedback on all of you moms that have been on here. And Dee and I just connected. We just found some kindred spirit, and she is in my Monday morning group at 10:30 that we have some other moms that we talk about all the stuff that we do as we go through grieving through this resurfacing book. Again, it's a 12-week program that you'll see the link for it above, that you can get connected and sign up for a group that we have scattered throughout the week. So hopefully we'll get you on there, because that is truly the key. You can be on here and watching us talk and going back and forth, but truly the healing begins when we're in a grieving moms community. So I really encourage you to do that. So, but without further ado, again, this is Dee, and we are going to be talking about dealing with other people. And I also want Dee to give a little bit of an intro for those of you that didn't get to see her, about her beautiful son, Grant. And she also has something that she'd like to gift you with that she's been working on as a fellow writer.
Hi. First of all, I just wanted to thank Jackie for having me here. And I just wanted to give you my condolences that you have to be here. I ran into a friend of mine today whose sister was with her, and we just briefly chatted, and then Kristen revealed our link, and that was that we both had lost boys. And, there was this special connection that only we moms understand. And it was just that physical touch and just that moment where we just felt each other's heart. And that's what I just encourage all of you to. If you don't have that mom in your life now that's walking in your shoes, having some mother interaction that you can get through the Grieving Moms group definitely will aid you in healing. Because even in those 5 minutes that we were talking in the middle of the restaurant, there was healing happening, and it just feels so good to know that you're not alone. And so I'll just tell you briefly, my name is Deana McGar. I go by Dee. I have a blog called Grounded Words. And the name of the blog is really simple. It's just think about grounding yourself in God's word. And the Lord gave it to me many, many years ago. And I just started writing after my son passed away. And this is Grant. And Grant had a tragic fall into an oncoming car while he was under the influence. His passing was labeled as a suicide, and we've always felt that it was just truly the drugs that got a hold of him that evening. And just one day at a time is how I think you go forward. And sometimes it's 1 minute.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Definitely. Thank you, Dee. I want to say hi to Margie and Kathy. Thank you for being here. And Dee is in Texas, and Jackie here is in Oregon. And with the beautiful technology, we're able to connect this way. And even in our groups, we'll be able to connect all over the country pretty much. And it's so easy and simple. And I just love, I mean, she's even 2 hours ahead, but we're able to make this all work together. So Dee, thank you for sharing about your blog. And ladies, I really encourage you. We'll put the link here at the top after this broadcast is over. But you can, it's just groundedwords is a .com. Is it
groundedwords.com? And I share a prayer. I share a prayer and a little story and some hope. And I try to write every Thursday, get one out. Sometimes it works better than, some weeks are better than other weeks. I'm still in grief, you know. I mean, I do the best I can.
I hear you. And sometimes, and what's nice is that we have a lot of resources, that will fit your style. You can read Dee's, and I also, hi, Mary. And we have the Hope at Sunrise that I put out, and I've actually bumped mine up, and I'm like, I try to write a new one every day. And since I've been moving, thank you for your grace, everyone, because I have not been able to pump those out daily. So some of them I have been revisiting from previous. So, but yeah, the word gentle and grace, a lot of G words that we have whenever we are grieving. Hi, Kathy Taylor. Nice to see you here, friend. So how about if you can share just a little bit how you and I connected before we get into everything?
Yeah, we connected basically because my husband and I were taking a couples grieving group, and he made a loving suggestion that I say that sarcastically, that maybe I needed to connect with moms. Because apparently I was sharing a lot of information that was not male specific, and I thought about it later. I was a little jolted by his comment. But I dusted it off. And I thought, you know what? Maybe he's right. I think I do need to be part of a grieving moms group. And somebody had actually sent me the information for your group early in my grief, and I was just so much in the fog that I didn't even remember that, and then started looking for that email through lots of emails till I finally found it. And then I saw you on the little Facebook Live, and I just felt such a connection to what you were saying that I signed up to be a leader. And I hadn't even gone to a meeting. I just knew that I needed to be with other moms, because this can be a very lonely journey. And as much as we have wonderful friends that walk through this with us, and I'm so grateful for those friends that I've had in my life that have been prior to Grant's passing. It's really great to have new friends that have that do have child loss, and it's a club that none of us would want to be part of.
Yeah. I love how you said you brushed yourself off after what he had said and got up. And sometimes those things are hard to take, but sometimes it's good, that they give us that little bit of that nudge. And I'm thankful because now you can be my friend. Yes. And that's such a blessing. It's a blessing to be with. So in session 9 in our book, Resurfacing, that we go through, we were just going to touch a little bit on it. But the scripture that's in that is in Ephesians 4:32, which is, be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you. And in there, I talk a lot about Job. We're familiar with that story. And Job, went through horrific losses. And oftentimes I feel like, I always say bring those scales to the table when it comes to everybody's different situation, because it's the story that we have and what we're to take on. And I look at all those losses and I'm like, gosh, it's like a modern day Job situation, that everybody was affected. But yet Job's friends came in the beginning. And in the Jewish tradition, when someone passes, and to this day, they call it sitting Shiva. And Shiva meaning 7. And so the friends come in, and, like if you can imagine, like people coming in and out of your house, that usually probably happens right after this horrific landslide. And you're not in the mood to really cook, or, you don't even want to talk. But these friends, these Jewish friends, would come in, they would just sit with the people that were mourning, that had lost a dear loved one, or they would bring meals, prepare meals, clean. In the back in the day, they would be feeding animals and just taking care of them. And you don't have to even talk, right? So then there would be that, but then all of a sudden you would get the friends like Job did that offer some advice that are not so welcoming. And, Dee and I had talked about that as we did even on our group time, where you have to give people a lot of grace. And I know that doesn't come easy in the middle of your grieving, because you're like, wait a minute, I'm the one that's grieving. And but in this place, you have to understand that they don't want to be in your shoes, and they've maybe never experienced having a friend or a family member that has gone through something like this, let alone, I mean, obviously we haven't either. But in the midst of that, they may say some things that they just wish that they could take back. And some of them are saying things just so that they can hurry up and fix you, because they want the old you back. And they also are then saying, like, I think you shared, like somebody's just saying, oh, you just need to hurry up and get over it, or when are you going to be normal again? And gosh, friends, it's like, I just look at them saying, they really love me that much. They really love me that much that they really want me to be well. But in that moment, it'll be 3 years for me in January. And there's times where even in the beginning, I would say to them, thank you so much for your concern and your suggestions. I'm not at that place right now, and I can't receive that right now. It's not checking in with my spirit, and it kind of helps to push them back a ways. And then most of the time they have said, "Oh gosh, Jackie, I'm so sorry. I just don't know what to say to you." Those that are able to let go of their pride, so to speak, and they're willing, and they say, we just want to love you. We just miss you. And they don't have words to say, right, Dee?
That's right. And, I'm fortunate that, a lot of my awkward times have not been with close friends in my circle, but I definitely have had lots of awkward times with strangers that have said things that really could have made my day pretty bad. Recently, I was someplace, and somehow it became, I was in a writing class, and it became knowledge that, that I was writing on grief. And somebody came up to me afterwards, and this lady said, well, at least you had kids. I never had any kids. And it really just kind of, whoa. I mean, I just felt like just, those vacuums that you put your money through when you go into the bank, and it makes that sound, it goes, and I just felt like all of a sudden I just was like sucked in, and I couldn't even believe that this lady had said that to me, because that wasn't the point. That wasn't what we were talking about. Right. And it was one of those moments that I just smiled, and I had kind of pre-worked in my mind, what would I do if I was in this situation and somebody had said this, because I had heard other friends that have lost their children talk about preparing our conversation, about getting your toolbox per se, so that when you're out and about, you have dialogue that you can communicate to people to prepare you for those times that it's a little unsettling. And my therapist that I had for many years always talked to me about really having scripted things that you can say. And I think that is so essential. Don't you agree, Jackie, that it's good to kind of know what you're going to say?
Yes. And actually, so let's take that for an example. So in that moment, you said, you smiled. And most of the time we're so taken back, like you said, that it's that hindsight, right? Well, gosh, if I would have said this, but what is our motivation? In hindsight, well, I should have said this, or in hindsight, how could I have responded? And so in that moment, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but like, what if you would have had a moment to think about it? What would have been a good example as to how to respond to her when she said that?
Honestly, really, I just in that moment, I smiled, but I really was speechless, and I don't know what I don't really know what I could have said to her more than just, I think it's sometimes is good to just say nothing, because
Yeah.
I'm afraid that if I would have said something to her, it would not have gone well. And as my husband says to me, sometimes it's best to just zip your lip. And so that was I actually feel like I zipped my lip pretty good. But sometimes there might be that situation where somebody might ask you how you are, and
Mm.
how do you answer that? That's a good test. What do we say when we're having a bad day? Well, I'm hanging in there, and sometimes you don't necessarily want to tell everybody how you are. So
Yeah, it's true. And I think that, in that situation, you're right. Sometimes it might be better to just, I love your husband, by the way. He is so funny. Corey, right?
your
It's like,
lip.
lift your lip. And I think that, like, I sometimes would have said something to people when I've had time to process it. Now, it takes practice, which sounds terrible. But people have said something to me, and I'm like, did you really mean to say that? And I'm really sorry, that you didn't have any children. That must have been hard,
Mm,
but to be honest, I didn't receive that well, because to me, it's like when you do have a child, it's like taking a part of you away, that half of me has gone to heaven. But a lot of times I just say, I hear you. And did you mean to say that? Because that wasn't received well. Something that's just real simple. Or in times when it's been harsh, I've had to say, gosh, did you mean to say that? Because that really hurt,
mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
and that sometimes takes them back. And it's not like scolding them, but it sometimes just has to deliver back to them so that they realize. And you know what? I think you're doing the next person a favor in that moment, because then it's make them stop and think. But I always try to acknowledge what they're saying, like saying, I hear you, or I'm really sorry that you didn't have children, but here's where I'm at, you
That's
know.
right.
Yeah. But and I didn't want to dissect that, but I was just using it as an example because we get it all the time, right, ladies? I want to say hi to Teresa. Is it Teresa or Teresa? I'm so sorry if I'm saying it wrong. And Margie, hi Margie. And Kathleen, can you see these comments on here, Dee?
I can now. I finally clicked the right button. If you click enough buttons, you'll find where you need to go. Hopefully, I won't click something and come on. But, I'd like to talk about an onion. I think that we have to look at our grief like a big onion, and we are sometimes in those situations where we're just sharing in layers. And there's some people that maybe they just get one layer, and then other people get a little bit more. And I learned that in my son's substance abuse problem, that not everybody needed to know that, and some people just got to hear the first layer that he struggled. And
Yeah.
then sometimes if I spoke code with another mom, she said, oh yeah, my son struggles too, then we were able to make that link. And I think it's kind of the same with our grief. We have to be able to discern whether this person gets to have our grief moment, because our grief is special. It's our grief, and we
Yeah.
sometimes need to guard that grief and decide, do we really want to give this away to this person? Because some people that aren't giving us any eye contact and they're not showing us any empathy, I don't think they deserve to hear any more than, yeah, my son passed away and done with it.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, like you and I were talking, that we have been gifted with a good gift of discernment and knowing. And that's really very important. Ladies, when people, say to you, how are you? Sometimes it's just a generic, like, introduction, right? We know that. And you're right. So if they're looking you in the eye, like a lot of times it's like I look at somebody and I really genuinely want to know, I put my hand on their shoulder. How are you? There's a difference between, hey, how are you, versus how are you? And those people, that maybe can be a couple layers of the onion that you can let out. I mean, it happens daily, especially if I say, somebody asks me what I do. I'm like, well, I wrote a book. Oh, what is your book about? And then it's like, do you want to start that conversation? Or if you're in a store, how many kids do you have? And then you're like, well, do you say you have 3 because I had 3 boys? Or do you say, well, I had 2? It just depends. I think that I can tell if somebody's like really wanting me to be transparent, because the vulnerability in our lives, makes connections better. But like you said, Dee, we don't necessarily need to make a connection with everybody, especially in a quick passing by moment or whatever it happens to be. I think we can use our unfortunate grief to minister to people, because like I said, we are not just a small candle on a table lit after grieving and losing a child. We are like a beacon, like a lighthouse to many, because again, as I always say, it is our worst nightmare, and we are still here to breathe. And that's what we do here at Grieving Moms. Like, we share this language, as you were mentioning earlier, that you've got to find that mom support to talk about things that you couldn't necessarily talk with somebody else about. And that's why, again, ladies, at the top of the broadcast, you'll see the link if you are really wanting to have those intimate conversations where someone else is going to understand. They're going to know what your pain is, and they're going to say, I hear you, and I'm so sorry, and share those triggers and coping devices. And we have a very sacred, safe place in our groups. Say, you know what, I'm really struggling with this negative coping device, or I'm having this ailment, or I'm struggling with a spouse or a child, and we can come together. And it's not necessarily we have to have answers, just being able to have like a safe place, as I mentioned, to be able to talk about that. Whereas out in our real world, sometimes we just don't have that.
Yeah, and I'd like to add on that. One thing that is really beautiful about having moms in our life that are walking in our shoes and grieving as well is that it allows us to have our other friendships and not to pressurize those friendships for them to understand. Like, I have some dear friends that if I had expected them to try to understand what I was feeling, that would have not been a friendly way to treat the friendship, because truly they can empathize, but they may not understand, how a song could just bring me down to the place that I can't even speak. That's something I had never experienced before. I could listen to music, but there's one song that was my son's favorite song. And no matter where I go, that song will just, if it's played, I mean, it's just, I think it helps our friendship when we
That's
have.
a very valid point. And I think that, your friends that haven't lost a child really appreciate and admire you for that. And why not even tell them, just say, I have this community where I can talk about this openly, so that you don't have to feel that pressure. But, I want to go out to the movies with you and we can just have fun, and not talk about it, because I think that gives them sort of a hall pass, so that because again, I always feel like that our friends look at us as being contagious. Like, ooh, that could happen to me. Like, I could lose one of my children just by, being around any of us, which I know sounds absolutely ridiculous, but sometimes, they think about that, because being around us puts that thought in their mind, and they don't ever want to think about that.
It's right. And, the thing is just beautiful, though, is that the Lord can take those moments when maybe we think that might be a situation with one of our friends, and He can actually it a bridge so that we can dialogue about that. Because I have a very dear friend of mine that was really in fear, and thankfully the Holy Spirit guided me to bridge that conversation so I could ask her about that. And you know what? We're now really close again, but there was this thing where she was just so fearful that it was hard for her to come by my side for a period of time, because she was just so afraid that this was going to happen to her. And you know what? That's where we have to give grace. And you know what? Sometimes our friends have to give us grace too. I had a really bad moment when I just shouldn't have picked up the phone. I was just in a bad place that particular day, and I picked up the phone and I did not share the type of empathy that I really needed to with this friend. And, the fact of it is that my problems that day seemed really big, but it's not all about me. And in grief, sometimes we feel like it's all about us. but it's not all about us. While they might not experience child loss, they still need us to be able to be there for them. And sometimes it's okay to give ourselves permission to screen that phone.
Yeah, and true that, when we're talking about it's not what's not all about us, but I think that the grieving in this capacity is so consuming. It's so consuming that it's really hard not to make it about ourselves. And just so if there's friends watching here that know any of your friends that are grieving, it's not intentional, that we bring in this heaviness. It's just part of our lives. It's like part of us, again, has gone on to heaven, and we're trying as best as we can. So thank you in advance to all of the friends and family members that are giving us that grace, because and by the way, like we can mention too, Dee, we're talking about dialoguing on that. It's like, there is no way that, I know you would say this too, that we couldn't get through this without the relationship with Jesus Christ. There's just zero way. I mean, knowing that our child has gone on ahead of us and we can see them again, and what a glorious day that it will be when we get to meet them. I don't know, I heard a mom say that every day that goes by is one day closer I'll get to see, my son or my daughter. So how about talking about letting these other people know what we need? And before I do that, I wanted to say, Margie made a comment that someone said to her, have I been told she's been told that she really needs to get over it. Yeah. And again, maybe Margie, take that as being that particular person really just misses you and is painful for them to see you grieve. And even though that's not right, just really bring that delicately back to them. You haven't lost a child, and I'm so thankful for that, but I'm not just going to get over it. It's going to be a day-to-day process. And I may have days that are worse than others. So thank you in advance for understanding, So, but talking about, and indeed, I love, you and I are so good at this, but it's like you say, hey, I want to talk about this, because both of us have a lot of good information to share. We could probably do an hour show, but I really wanted to emphasize too, and maybe you've had this with you and your family, but the two words that we as moms don't say: I need to have some time alone in the house, and I need to have somebody make me dinner. I need to schedule, how about this one, a massage. There's nothing wrong with that. I need to say no to this party. I need to say no to this, going to this wedding, whatever happens to be, and just really just being open about it. Like, I need to go to the movies with someone because I want to get out, but I don't necessarily want to talk. Just vocalizing so much of what it is that our needs are, because then those people around us can figure out what's going on with us in that moment. If we're quiet, if like you had shared with me about how, you just had one of those moments and you just shot it out, and you felt embarrassed about it. And I'm sure you're okay with me talking about that, because we all do. Because we all do that, where we have a moment where we just lose it, and we need to have grace, because we're carrying a big load around, right?
Absolutely. And I think that when it comes to our needs, one of the things that just has helped me so much is just having that daily journaling time. And I know not everybody is a writer, and I understand that, but just being able to sit down and to find something to be grateful for. And in those early days of grief, sometimes it's the smallest things that we're grateful for. I mean, I remember just fuzzy socks just felt really good in those early days of that crying. And one of the things that I needed was not necessarily more food. However, I loved all the food that we got, and it was so great. And I've been counting the points, the point system ever since then. But the one thing is, I needed a people walker. And one of my friends, said, what can I do? And I said, you know what? I just need somebody to come over and walk me. And she did. And I still call her my people walker, because,
So
it was a practical need. But that morning time when I was journaling to Jesus and I was saying, Lord, I've got so many people that want to help me, and He just put on my heart, just what do you need the most today? And I was like, to get out of this house because it was just hard.
At first when I heard you say people walker, I thought
Yeah.
you said a people blocker, because I think we need both.
Oh no. No.
But I think we need both of those sometimes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm reading Teresa's comment. That's very hard, but you have to be intentional because if not, it won't happen. I'm just learning how to do that this year too. Yes. Yes, Teresa was saying that. It's right.
The people walker. Thank you guys for adding your comments, and please put on there again where you're viewing from, because and those of you that we didn't connect with and answer, we'll come back to those and try to do our best that we can to answer that. But I was like laughing because you said people walker, which we do. Like, I have a dog walker because my dog wants me to take walks in the morning. But then a people blocker, like my friend Kathy, that a lot of you have met because she works with us here at Grieving Moms. She would answer the door a lot of times when she was here, or even answer my phone and be the people blocker, because I just, like you said, you don't necessarily, you answer the phone, you're like, oh, well, why did I answer the phone? Because first of all, the phone is a trigger for me anyway. And I just don't know, unless it's my family, then of course, then I will drop everything and I will answer the phone.
That's right. And like early on in my grief, I was crying so much I had to go to the optometrist and get some new contacts. And my optometrist at that time was not an empathetic person. And so I was like, there's just no way I can go see him, because I'm going to say, he's going to ask me about the contacts. It's related to crying all the time. And he's just going to be like, oh, well. And so, you know what? I was like, I'm finding a new optometrist. And I prayed for it, and I asked Lord, I said, it'd be just so great if you could bring me a really great empathetic optometrist. And I got one, and it was just so great. Those are the little moments in our grief we have to champion that, because I knew that if I was going to go in there and see him, it was going to be bad news for me. And, we do need to come back and guard our grief, even in little situations. If we have somebody that we have to be in service with, and we know that person is not going to be the type of person that's going to be who we need to see. Maybe we need to see somebody else that is in our service.
Yeah, I agree. And I love that, guarding your grief. That's really a good point for everybody. Again, and being just, everything has to just be a little bit more delicate. How we receive things is just got to be a little bit more delicate. And I say that to all, again, family and friends, and also, to our children, our other surviving children. And I love, because Dee's daughter is so incredibly sweet, and she looks like she's handling things so well, and such a doll. And I welcome her back anytime that she wants to come on and say hi to all of us. Kathleen saying, my son will be gone forever this Sunday, September the 23rd. Kathleen, I so hear you, and I'm so sorry, sweetheart. But you're going to get to see him again. You are going to get to see him again, and I just hope that we can connect here. Ladies, we are a little past our half-hour blissful time with you, because I know that we could sit here and talk like a long time and share things, and we'd love to hear what you're sharing. And I've got Helen here from Kentucky. Welcome, Helen. So thank you guys for being here. Again, please, really pray about getting in a group. Really, really pray. We have had such great healing and connections, and I want to do a shout out to one of our moms named Peggy. She is not doing well, and I'm just going to pray for a miraculous healing upon her life. She's been in one of our groups, and she is going through horrific cancer. So we could just pray for Peggy and her a miraculous healing upon her life. And anyways, ladies, we love you. If you want to sign up for Hope at Sunrise devotions, you can do that. We'll put the link at the top here. Also, if you want to read some of Dee's beautiful blogs that she does at groundedword.com. I'm so sorry. I will get it eventually, Dee.
No, it's okay. I need to have something. Grounded Words.
Groundedwords.com, and I have read them, and they are beautiful. And she just really raw and real, and she does break it down, has a prayer at the end, and it's really, really good. So we will see you here next Tuesday. If anybody would love to share their story and some pointers, please just ping me and just let me know, message me, and I would be happy to talk to you about wanting to share here, because it is not as hard as you think it is, and the moms would really, you would probably really bless a lot of people, as Dee and some of the other moms have. So Dee, thank you so much, sweetheart. I love you to pieces for being here and taking out your time. And to all of you ladies that have been here and been watching, and we just hope to see you in on a Zoom call and join us in a private group. God bless you, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Dee.
Goodbye, ladies.